exit from Old Trafford over the course of this window. But who is going to come in and fill that midfield void? Manchester United is screaming for a CDM. We're definitely going to need a new midfielder if Paul Pogba is to leave. In other news, we're going to be looking at Tammy Abraham and his proposed exit from Chelsea. Heavily tipped with the move to West Ham. Could Arsenal be about to spoil their party? We're going to be talking Liverpool. We're going to be talking Tottenham also. Make sure you hit that like button, that share button. You subscribe to the Football Terrace. This is the Done Deal Show. Here we go. Good morning, Pete. How are you?
I'm very good, Terry. A bit sunburned, but all okay.
Aren't we all at the minute? It's beautiful weather. Can't complain. But make sure, if you are watching, make sure you're protecting your skin because those UV rays are a killer. Don't ruin your time in the sun. Along with the weather heating up, it appears the transfer market is certainly moving in that direction. We've seen some completed deals at Leicester, Arsenal, Man United with the likes of Jadon Sancho, Raphael Varane on the edge as well. Maybe even out by the time this video is released. So lots happening right now in the market, Pete.
Yeah, things are heating up now. As you said, the Euros were going to delay any of these big major transfers happening, but now the Euros are done now. The big clubs can push forward and try and get some of these major deals done. And as you said, Varane to United gathering pace. Jadon Sancho's done and dusted. Everton have made a few signings as well this week. Arsenal have brought a couple of new faces in as well, but still plenty of room and plenty of clubs looking to fill their squads before the start of the season and before the window closes at the end of August. So, yeah, lots to do and lots of big names being linked.
Yeah, absolutely. There is. And Man United, of course, been very, very busy in this window. Raphael Varane, I mean, when I say it looks done, I mean, it doesn't look like it could be any closer.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very close, a very exciting prospect for Manchester United fans that this deal's actually happening, because probably at the start of the summer, maybe May time, I don't think anybody had any real major hope that Man United would be signing somebody like Raphael Varane. All eyes seem to be on somebody like a Pau Torres at Villarreal or even a Jules Koundé, but they've been given the indications that Varane is up for this move to Old Trafford. He is ready to leave Real Madrid after a long spell with the Spanish giants, and it all comes down now to agreeing a fee between Manchester United and Real Madrid. And with the player keen to go, Man United willing to meet his personal demands, Real Madrid will have to sell him now. They can't allow a player like Varane to run down his contract and potentially leave on a free transfer next summer or sign a pre-contract in January. So, yeah, I would fully expect Man United to get this deal done and Raphael Varane to be the second big name signing after Jordan Sancho for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's team this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right in more than right in that the guys of Man United fans certainly were not expecting a player of this quality, a player of this ilk, to come in and be a Manchester United player. But it's great business. It's going to be again a price that nobody would expect to bring him in, and then focus is going to go elsewhere. And of course, focus seems to be heavily linked around Manchester United's midfield. Some slight reports that Donny van de Beek could be on his way out, but big reports in the last sort of 24 hours or so that Paul Pogba may be on his way out of Manchester United and on his way to Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, we're obviously going to have lots of reports about Paul Pogba, I think, between now and the close of the transfer window. We all know his contract situation at Old Trafford. He's now entering the final year of that. Still no clearer to signing a new deal. And if United are to tie him down to a new contract, it's going to have to be on bumper terms for Pogba, probably make him the highest earner at the club. And we all know that can cause issues within the squad if you go and do that, as we've seen with Alexis Sanchez in the past at Manchester United, and David De Gea is on big money at Manchester United as well, and United have found difficulties in trying to offload him because of his wages. So, yeah, it's going to be a big few weeks for Paul Pogba. Every transfer window, we have rumours about Paul Pogba maybe leaving Manchester United and going elsewhere. We know on his day he's a world-class performer. He showed that for France in stages at the Euros. But it seems like the latest reports are that PSG would love to bring him back to his native France. And I'm sure it's something that PSG would like to do. But then I'm hearing stuff that PSG would need to offload players to try and fund this deal. Although PSG have done some smart business in the windows so far, bringing in the likes of Gino Wijnaldum, Sergio Ramos on free transfers, Donnarumma on a free transfer. They have also spent big as well. So Hakimi's come in for big money from Inter Milan. So Mauricio Pochettino looks like he's building a real project in the French capital right now. And to get somebody like a Paul Pogba could be the missing piece in the jigsaw. But I don't think it's cut and dry, this one. If I was to be a betting man, I think Paul Pogba will remain a Manchester United player when the transfer window closes.
That's an interesting one that you say that. It's definitely not cut and dry. There's no doubt about that. Do you think this has something to do with Man United almost, I wouldn't say stalling over buying new midfield players, but there is, of course, the offer that's been made contractually to Goretzka to say, look, if you don't sign a new deal, we're willing to pay you this. There's been kind of fairly quiet conversations with the likes of Sal Niguez's representation and Ruben Neves. Do you think they're almost waiting to see what happens with Paul Pogba before they trigger a move for a midfield player?
Yeah, we all know Pogba's future is going to sort of determine what Manchester United do in this transfer market. I think United's priority would be if they can keep Paul Pogba and secure him on a new contract. That's their number one priority. But again, like any major club, you got to have plans in place in the background ready to act and act quickly in case you do end up losing that player. If PSG come in and offer £50 million for Paul Pogba and he indicates he's not going to sign a new deal, it makes business sense for United to try and offload him and take the money that's on offer from PSG and not keep an unhappy player who potentially could run down his contract, sign a pre-contract in January and leave for nothing next summer, which has happened before with Paul Pogba. United were stung all those years ago when he turned down contract offers from Sir Alex Ferguson and the United board and ended up leaving to go to Juventus, and that's where he really made his name and came to the fore on the world football stage. So United will be wary of this one. It's a difficult situation to be in, I think, for United. They don't want to lose Pogba, but again, they know they can't afford to let him go on a free. So they're going to have targets in mind to come in and replace Pogba. As you mentioned, Leon Goretzka in a similar situation, sort of to Pogba, his contract just having a year to run at Bayern Munich, and he's no closer to signing a new contract. So Bayern Munich, a bit like United, are going to have to think, are we going to have to sell this player rather than let him run down his contract? And Ruben Neves, as we've spoken before in other shows, Terry, it seems like he will leave Wolves this summer. I think they've got a few financial issues, so they're going to have to cash in on a few of their top players. And somebody like a Neves has been on United's radar for quite a long time, so I'm sure he will come into the reckoning as well. But I just don't see United making a move for a midfielder if nothing happens with Pogba. So if Pogba stays, I don't see a new midfielder coming into Old Trafford this summer.
Donny van der Beek, there's been a few. It's interesting with him. A lot of the talk about Barcelona and other teams wanting him, it felt like what I've read that was earlier on in the summer, but that news is only now coming out. What is your understanding about his future? Can you see a Juve or a Barca coming in for him, or do you think Man United, if we're not looking at anybody else unless Paul Pogba leaves, surely they're not going to want to weaken the midfield by allowing Donny van der Beek to go?
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if Van der Beek was to leave. We all know it was a bit of an underwhelming debut season that he had at Old Trafford. Maybe not just all his own fault. He didn't get many opportunities in that Man United starting 11 from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But that was probably down to the form of Bruno Fernandes, who was superb again for United. He was always an automatic pick in the starting 11, and that's restricted Van der Beek's opportunities. But United did pay a lot of money to sign him from Ajax, and they had a lot of high hopes for him. So I don't think they'll make any rash decisions on his future right now. I think he's come back to pre-season nice and early. He's missed the Euros with Holland through injury, so he's going to come back fit, rearing, and ready to go and try and prove a point to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side. And I think if you've got a player like that, although his debut season wasn't great, we've seen players in the past struggle in their first season. moving to a new league, moving to a new country, and it takes them maybe a while to adapt to their new surroundings and adapt to their new teammates and maybe their style of play. And we've heard a few rumours that Solskjaer is going to change tactics at Man United next season, especially in midfield. So again, that might open more opportunities for Van de Beek. Talk that he might be willing to play only one CDM, maybe a Fred or McTominay, rather than the two of them together. So that will give encouragement to Van de Beek that he might get more opportunities. But if United did decide to let him leave, I'm sure no shortage of admirers for the Dutch international. Juventus have liked him in the past. I'm sure Ajax would take him back in a heartbeat as well. And the Barcelona one, I'd probably take that one with a bit of pinch of salt. We all know about Barcelona's problems at the minute with their squad and their financial woes. So I think Barcelona are just looking to get rid of players right now rather than bring players in. So I can't see the Barcelona one, but I think a bit too early to judge him, Van de Beek. I'm sure he'll remain at Man United and be hoping to be given his chance in the new season.
There we go. Just back to Paul Pogba quickly. You said that you don't see him leaving. Do you think he's more likely to sign a new deal or leave for free next year? What's your thoughts on that?
Gut feeling. I think he's happy to run down the contract, see what else is out there for him. We all know Juventus would love him back in Turin. Real Madrid have been long-term admirers as well. Barcelona would like a Paul Pogba as well. And then, as we know, PSG would happily take him back to France as well. So I think Paul Pogba's in the driving seat here. He's going to have a lot of choice. And if he is to stay at United and signing the contract, it's going to be on his terms. So it's going to have to be a big money deal for Paul Pogba to stay. And just we know with situations where players come into the final contracts, the ball is in their court and they're in control of their own destiny. So I don't think he's in any rush to leave Man United. He'll maybe look to see what United are doing in the transfer market, and the signings of Sancho and potentially Varane might encourage him that United are going in the right way, and he might end up signing the new contract. But I don't think there's any massive rush from Pogba to sign that contract at United right now.
Yeah, and that becomes a conundrum, doesn't it? But we'll see what happens in that space with Paul Pogba, ladies and gentlemen. Let us know what you think and you feel in the comment sections. Make sure you're smashing the like button for us right now, sharing this stream across your social media platforms, hitting the subscribe button, but making sure you click the bell notification button next to that as well. The striker situation at Chelsea, Pete, it's been rumbling on the majority of the summer, but most of the talk has been about Haaland coming in, Lukaku being spoken about. But of course, a big part of that conundrum is what happens to Tammy Abraham. There's a lot of talk about West Ham wanting him, but not being prepared to pay the £40 million asking price. It now emerges that Arsenal Football Club may be coming in, whether to buy him or to put him on loan for a season. What's the latest on Tammy Abraham and his potential exit from Stamford Bridge?
Yeah, Tammy Abraham looks like he's going to leave Chelsea this summer. I think that's almost nailed on that he will depart Stamford Bridge before the close of the transfer window. Interesting one that Chelsea are considering loaning him out rather than taking the money for him, which I don't think many people would have expected. But I think it just shows how far down the pecking order that Tammy Abraham has become under Thomas Tuchel. Didn't make the squad for the FA Cup final earlier last season, and I just think he's not in their plans. They want to make room for a new striker. We all know their number one target is Erling Haaland, but again, we all know how hard a deal that will be to do. But yeah, Olivier Giroud's gone. You'd be thinking, oh, maybe there's an opportunity for Tammy Abraham to win his place back in the side under Tuchel, but it seems that's not the case. Both parties willing to move on here. Chelsea are happy to let Abraham go, and I think Abraham has now come around to the idea that he's not going to play at Chelsea. He's not in the long-term plans, and I think he's ready to move on as well. So the opportunities that are out there for him, West Ham, long-term admirers, but are struggling to meet that 40 million fee. Arsenal have now come in and seemingly from nowhere seem to be heading the race for Abraham. And I think as an Arsenal fan, if you could get somebody like Tammy Abraham on loan with an obligation to buy, I think it'd be a good deal. Obviously changing the squad there at the Emirates, Mikel Arteta, and he's looking at young English players with a deal for Ben White, all agreed in principle. And to get something like Tammy Abraham in, who is a proven goal scorer, I think he's still scored the most goals of any Chelsea player in the current squad. So he definitely knows how to find to the back of the net, and that's been a problem for Arsenal. So it could be a great deal for Arsenal, and if Chelsea are willing to loan him out to Arsenal, maybe it shows that Chelsea don't see Arsenal as rivals anymore, because probably a year to 2 years ago, if you thought Chelsea would give one of their top strikers to Arsenal, you'd have been laughed at.
Yeah, I mean that whole thing about being rivals is a big part of that, especially if Chelsea, whether it's getting, we don't know the makeup of this loan deal yet. It's very sketchy. It could be a loan with an obligation to buy, as mentioned, and a few other things. But if that kind of deal helps them land Haaland, I almost don't think they care, because Tammy isn't going to make, if Chelsea get Haaland or even Lukaku, Tammy going to Arsenal isn't going to suddenly propel them in front of Chelsea. It's not like they're neck and neck going for the title and they're just a decent goal scorer away from challenging. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Olivier Giroud is gone. I'm not too sure whether that's actually fully confirmed or
that's done.
That's done. That is done. It's over the line. Tammy being touted about. There's no way Chelsea are going into this new season without a new striker if Tammy and Giroud go. Surely they can't allow that to happen.
No, I think absolutely vital that Chelsea bring in a new striker. And even before the departures of possibly Tammy Abraham and Olivier Giroud, they were in this market for a striker because they struggled up front last season, and on large occasions, Timo Werner struggled to hit the heights that were expected of him in his debut season. And we saw Kai Havertz playing as a number 9 at the back end of the season and did a good job at times. But that's not his natural position, and I don't think that's what Chelsea envisaged him playing. So, yeah, Chelsea desperately in the market for a new number 9, somebody who can lead the line for them. Erling Haaland is the number 1 target, but again, it's going to be a huge fee to try and tempt Borussia Dortmund into selling them. Talking about maybe 135 million bid. Chelsea are ready to put on the table to try and tempt Dortmund to do this deal. For me, if I was Dortmund, I know you've just lost Jadon Sancho, but if you're going to get 135 million for Erling Haaland, when you could possibly lose him for 65 million next summer because of his release clause, I think you got to take it. And that's why I think Chelsea are banking on right now. They're banking on the business and financial sense of a 135 million pound deal that Dortmund will have to take it. Otherwise, basically, they're losing half the money because Haaland will leave next summer when his release clause becomes active.
Yeah, and I think it's dependent on who they're taking advice from. So, as we know, across the kind of media element when it comes to this deal, there are some outlets that say, and individuals that think, 150 or 175 euros, I've heard different reports, is going to be enough. There's others, say like The Athletic, that are cast iron in terms of their opinion, that they have been told no matter what is bid, Dortmund say no. It just feels like Chelsea believe, and do you know what? It's Haaland and Lukaku. Lukaku, they're told, won't happen because he doesn't want to leave. But the fact they're going down the lines of allowing their 2 backup strikers to Timo Werner to leave, and they're not, they don't appear to be looking at anybody else to replace them. A lot of the other names, I think to myself, are they actually any better than what you already had? It just wouldn't. It just doesn't make sense. And Chelsea tend not to do silly business like that. So it's going to certainly be intriguing to see what happens there. And of course, with Tammy, with West Ham and Arsenal going head to head, and I sure hope for Arsenal's point of view they don't lose out to West Ham. If they lose out to West Ham, it could be damaging. We have a super chat here that says, "Is it possible that Dortmund put their ego over common sense?"
Every possibility it might happen. We all know last summer they were adamant Jadon Sancho wasn't going to leave to join Manchester United, even though they've ended up selling them now this summer for a lot less than what Man United offered in the previous transfer window. So they took a loss on that one, although they did keep Jadon Sancho for another season, and he helped them qualify for the Champions League, which we all know is so vital for these top clubs these days to finish in the top 4 in the respective league and then qualify for the Champions League and earn the millions from UEFA. But for me, I think it's a massive gamble they're taking, Dortmund. If Chelsea are willing to spend 135 million on the player, and they know we want it, and they say no to that, and they keep him, they're going to lose him for 65 million next year, guaranteed. Because once that release clause is activated, it's not like it's going to become an auction. It might become an auction for Erling Haaland and his representatives, but it's not going to become an auction for Dortmund, because that is the set fee, 65 million, when you can get 135 million now. As a club, business wise, you've got to take that money.
Yeah, for me, I'm in agreement with you. I think you certainly do. When you are, without being disrespectful, when you are a selling club as well, which they are, on a higher end of the scale, like a Lyon, they're selling clubs. They develop players to sell them. So it makes a lot of sense. Back to Arsenal for a moment here. We know they're obviously linked with Tammy Abraham. Midfield's a really key area for them. More and more reports coming out daily of bids. There's now one of a £34 million or £40 million bid for Locatelli that's been accepted. There's heavy links to the likes of Basuma, Ruben Neves, as we mentioned, in connection to Manchester United earlier. Ben White's about to be done, and that'll be 3 deals under their belt. It very much appears they're going to be going in for the 4 midfield players. James Maddison is another one as well. What's the current situation surrounding Arsenal and their midfield and attacking midfield options?
Yeah, they're trying to make inroads into this one to try and get a creative midfielder into the side for Mikel Arteta. We all know Martin Odegaard performed well on loan from Real Madrid, but it looks like he's going to stay in Spain. So Mesut Ozil has now left on a free transfer as well. So spaces are opening up in that Arsenal midfield for someone to come in. I think they're getting encouraging signs maybe that something could be done with James Maddison, which I don't know, maybe people thought was a bit of a fantasy signing maybe for Arsenal that didn't think they'd be able to get him. But I think they've been encouraged that they might be able to persuade Leicester to do a deal on him. It seems Arsenal are ready to offer a couple of fringe players in part exchange for Maddison, as well as a substantial fee as well. So maybe offering 50 million plus the likes of a Maitland-Niles or a Reece Nelson or even a Joe Willock, whose future still remains uncertain at Arsenal. He had a very productive loan spell at Newcastle last season. They would love to bring him back to St James's Park, but wouldn't be able to do that in a permanent transfer just due to his fee. So maybe if Arsenal are willing to lose Willock and offer him in an exchange deal for Maddison, this really could happen. And I think Maddison is sort of coming around to the idea of maybe moving from Leicester to Arsenal. So yeah, real encouraging signs here for the Gunners that they might be able to land James Maddison, who's been a top target for them, not just for this summer. I was told last summer he was on their list, but they just knew then it would have been too hard to do. But they're trying to be inventive in the transfer market and come up with solutions, maybe by offering players, swap deals in part exchange to try and get this deal done. But yeah, as things stand now, I think Maddison's their top target. I think Locatelli, although they have bid for the Sassuolo midfielder, I think Arsenal are resigned to the fact if Juventus do come in for him, the player will end up going to Juventus. So it could be a wasted pursuit, that one, if Arsenal do follow up their interest in Locatelli. And Ruben Neves, slightly different player to James Maddison. Maddison, the more creative one, but I think Neves, more possibility of that happening if they do manage to offload Granit Xhaka to Roma. That one's ongoing as well. Jose Mourinho's keen to get it done. I think Xhaka's keen to make the move to Italy as well. So as soon as maybe that one's done, they'll step up their interest in Ruben Neves. But yeah, I think Maddison, this one's gathering pace, and Arsenal are growing ever more confident that there's a possibility of a deal happening there.
In terms of the encouragement around the Maddison deal, what is that, and where has that come from? Is that almost they haven't been categorically told no by Leicester that it wouldn't be doable? Is it encouraging signs from maybe the representation to say, look, we think you can make Leicester budge? Where is this coming from that's making Arsenal suddenly more confident?
Yeah, I think it's coming from both sides, to be honest, Terry. I think there's a bit of encouragement from Leicester as well that if they offer the right deal, they'll happily take it, but it'll be on their terms. And I know his representatives are ongoing discussions between Arsenal and themselves to see if they can get this deal done. And I think the player as well fancies the move. He fancies maybe going to Arsenal, being the main man there, because probably in the last 12 months, you've had a difficult season by his standards at Leicester. Sometimes he was in and out of the team. He had a few fitness issues as well. He started on the bench in that FA Cup final, which Leicester managed to win as well. So I'm thinking James Maddison might be of the ilk here, thinking I want to go to Arsenal, go to one of the big clubs in the country and stamp his mark on them and maybe become a key player in that side as well. So I know there's been a few issues as well off the field. I know he didn't do himself any favours when he was involved in that COVID party, which saw a number of the Leicester players isolating as well. So if Brendan Rodgers sees there's a good deal to be done here with a big check coming in and possibly Arsenal fringe players coming in as well as part of the deal. I think it's something that Leicester are seriously considering now.
It's an interesting one. I mean, some of the early reports when this came up suggested that there may have been some kind of riff or problem between Maddison and Rodgers, and that may not necessarily be as dramatic as people made out, but it feels like that rumor kind of, there's no smoke without fire. Maybe there is a little bit of a concern. You look at a lot of people felt that Samari coming in was going, there was going to be a replacement for Ndidi, but maybe they're looking to play with a different formation now with the likes of Daka coming in. There's talk about them going more 4-3-3, which would take away the possibility of using a number 10, which is Maddison's position. He's not going to drop any deeper. He's certainly not a box-to-box midfielder by any stretch of the imagination. So, I mean, those could be the encouraging elements as well. Maybe some money to be recouped there. It's going to be an interesting one because that would be a colossal signing for Arsenal Football Club, and they've already done some great business. You suddenly add a James Maddison to that team, and Arsenal look like they mean business again.
Yeah, they're making serious moves in the market so far. They're backing Mikel Arteta, and it seems like they're changing their stance. They're going for young, hungry players and ones that maybe they can improve as well. The Ben Whites of this world, a talented young player who's probably going to become a long-term England international. James Maddison, we all know how good he can be on his day as well. They've signed Lokonga from Anderlecht, another young midfielder, and then Tavares as a left back coming in from Portugal as well. He's a backup to Kieran Tierney. So, yeah, they're making some decent moves in the transfer market so far, Arsenal. But I think, again, they're not flush with money. They have backed Mikel Arteta so far, but I think you'll probably find over the next couple of weeks there'll be a few outs at Arsenal as well, just to try and clear the decks and bring some much needed funds in, especially if they are going to try and fund the move. For James Maddison, you're going to talk probably 40 to 50 million pounds plus maybe players in exchange as well. So it's not going to be an easy deal to do, and it's definitely not going to be a cheap deal either.
No, it's not going to be cheap, but we know they've got money this summer. Anything between 150 to 200 million pounds they've got to spend. They've got players on the way out, and as you say, Leicester have got this great ability to develop players. Joe Willock has done Arsenal a massive favour by being brilliant at the back end of last season. He's worth money. He's worth money because of that. You suddenly say, look, a bit of Maitland-Niles for some versatility cover, and Joe Willock has some midfield cover. And as you say, maybe 50, maybe a little less, maybe 40 million, and we've got a deal. And those players are not getting game time at Arsenal, so it's money for old rope for them. It gets them off the wage bill, and they bring in a stellar individual that's going to improve their team. So yeah, it's interesting times ahead for Arsenal Football Club, no doubt about it. Gunners, what do you think? What do you feel? Hit the like and the share button, share this stream, clip the news up and share it with your friends, and make sure you're subscribing to the Football Terrace. Speaking of talented English players, Kieran Trippier, linked with Man United on a number of occasions. Real interesting sort of news at the moment. A lot of the word from Madrid is Ati are kind of telling everybody, we're not letting him go. He's not for sale. But yet the British press has a bit of a different feel. Trippier's confident the deal's going to go through. He's reportedly about to buy, I think, Raheem Sterling's home off of him. That's not generally the actions of a man who's staying for another 2 years in Madrid. What's the latest on his proposed move to Manchester United?
Yeah, Kieran Trippier is really pushing for this move to happen. He's got his heart set on a move to Old Trafford. He's hoping that the two clubs can come to some type of an agreement to allow him to return to the Premier League. But yeah, it's not cut and dried, this one. Atletico, in no real rush to sell Kieran Trippier. They don't need to. Financially, they're okay. They want to keep hold of him. They've just won La Liga in Spain, so they're preparing for another season in the Champions League and to try and retain their Spanish title as well. And I know Diego Simeone is a big fan of Kieran Trippier, that he can play left back, right back, and his set pieces delivery is also very key, as we've seen that he has done for England as well during the Euro. So quite an underrated player for me, Kieran Trippier. I think he's a top player. He's never let England down when he's played, and I think he went over to Spain. And many people probably didn't expect him to make that move as well, and he made a success of it as well. But yeah, this one's, the fee's going to be the major issue and stumbling block to this deal happening. United had a real cheeky bid of between 10 to 12 million turned down maybe about a month or 2 months ago. Then it went quiet because Atletico were sort of pricing him out of a move. But now it's gathering a bit of pace again. Now the Euros are over, that United are going to come back in with a new offer for Trippier, maybe of around £18 million. I still think that's quite short of Atletico's valuation of the England international. I was told a couple of weeks ago it was 35 million or nothing. So whether United keep making these bids and Atletico sort of decide to whatever decrease their evaluation of the player, and if the player maybe kicks up a stink that he wants to move, then there's a possibility that it might happen. But as things stand right now, I would expect Kieran Trippier to remain an Atletico Madrid player for next season.
Ooh, it's going to be an interesting one to see what happens there. We want your thoughts and your feelings, ladies and gentlemen. We have a super chat here that goes back to the Chelsea conversation. This is from Grey Wolf's Dinner, who says, should Chelsea meet Dortmund's valuation of Haaland eventually, or should we stick to our principles and not budge? I personally believe we have the power. It's more, I suppose that's more of a question along the lines of, should Chelsea break the bank, or should they not, essentially? What do you think they should do? What do you think they should do, Pete, in your eyes?
I think what they're doing right now is they're seeing this as a window of opportunity to get Haaland where other clubs can't afford to get him. Chelsea have got the money. Roman Abramovich has made this his personal mission, it seems, this summer to try and get this deal done. He's willing to dig deep into those big pockets that he's got and put up the money of 135 million to try and sign Haaland. No other club can get near that this summer. Maybe a Manchester City could, but then we've already seen Pep Guardiola coming out saying how hard it is for City to sign the striker they want this summer. So it seems like it's a clear road for Chelsea to sign Dortmund this summer, but it might not be such a clear path next summer when his release clause kicks in at 65 million. And I'm sure it's not just going to be Chelsea interested in him. You're going to have Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United, Real Madrid, Barcelona, and PSG. So that's why I think Chelsea are really pushing for this now. No other club can probably afford him in the current financial market, and they know next year it's going to be a major race to sign him when it just takes that 65 million release clause to be activated, and he can pick and choose where he wants to go. So Chelsea are trying to act quickly and seeing this as an opportunity to steal a march on their rivals in the signature of the Norwegian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of Chelsea fans have been deliberating over Declan Rice. And I feel the same about their signing of Declan Rice now, compared to, in the same way as I look at Haaland. I get they may not think it's, and a Chelsea fan said yesterday, he's probably worth 60 million to a Man United that need a quality midfielder, but we don't need one. And my view is yes, but these two players are 20 and 22 respectively. You might not want to spend 150 million on Haaland. You may not want your club to spend 60, 70 million on Rice. But in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, 5 years' time, when those two players are two of the best in the world in their positions and they're playing for a rival and they're helping to beat you, you might look back and think to yourselves, why didn't we just spend the money? Yes, you might think that Rice is only worth 45, 50 million tops, but that extra 10, 15, 20 million in 4 or 5 years' time might feel worth it. And I think that's something Chelsea Football Club have seriously got to consider in this situation. There's no doubt. In terms of other midfielders linked with big moves to the Premier League, another link to Arsenal here with Houssem Aouar. It's now reported that Liverpool are leading the race as Lyon sort of raised the asking price again, reportedly. This comes a few days after there was seemingly a kind of gentleman's agreement between Arsenal and Lyon, 22 to 25 million pounds for the player. What's the latest with Houssem Aouar and his proposed move now to Anfield over the Emirates?
Yeah, it's an interesting development, this one. I think at the start of the summer, I think most of us were expecting Houssem Aouar to make the move to Arsenal. They tried to sign him last summer, but couldn't agree a fee with Lyon, so he ended up staying there, much to his disappointment, because I think he had his heart set on a move to the Premier League and to Arsenal. But now Liverpool have come into the reckoning for the French international, and it's an interesting one because we all know Liverpool are in the market for a midfield reinforcement to replace Gini Wijnaldum. Aouar is probably somebody who's available on the market and not a massive price tag either way when you think about it compared to other players that they've been linked with. The Yuri Tillemans, we're probably talking 50 plus million if you were to try and sign him from Leicester, who don't want to lose the Belgian international either. Sal Niguez is going to be 40 million plus as well. Renato Sanchez is also being linked from Lille. Again, he's probably going to be 30 to 35 million. So Houssem Aouar would be a cheaper alternative to these players. And on his day, he's a proven player, I think, and I think Liverpool have been keeping an eye on him for a while. He's got real potential, I think, to be a success in the Premier League. And we all know Lyon and French clubs in general, probably apart from PSG, not really flush with money. They've been badly affected by the COVID pandemic and the TV deal collapsing as well. So the French clubs are being forced to listen to offers for their top players. And there's no doubt that Houssem War is one of the best young talents in Ligue 1 right now. And I think Liverpool maybe thinking this could be an opportunity to get a good player at a good price as well. So they're going to maybe rival Arsenal's, Tottenham's, who have been linked with the midfielder as well. The only sticking point is that Lyon are not meant to be on good terms with Liverpool after the failed move for Nabil Fekir a couple of years ago, when Lyon thought they had done a deal for Fekir to move to Anfield for close to £50 million, and then Liverpool pulled the plug at the 11th hour, and that didn't go down too well with the power brokers at Lyon. So whether that might affect Liverpool's chances, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I totally get that. It depends how much Lyon want the money. At the end of the day, like, do you get what I mean? It's like we need
money
the
talks. Money talks.
Money always talks, and it's a good way of resolving these things. Liverpool's situation in midfield is so interesting because I don't think 5 months ago, if you said this 2 months ago, you'd have been shot down as making things up. But there now appears to be a little bit, a bit like Paul Pogba, and a little bit like Leon Goretzka. Although I think Henderson maybe has 2 years left on his deal.
Yep.
There is seemingly a big sort of, there's been stalling in contract negotiations with him. And if it appears to rivals that Liverpool don't want to offer Henderson a new deal, of course, that's going to make the Sharks circle to try and take him away. There's links to Juve, Paris Saint-Germain, Atletico Madrid, all potentially looking at the Liverpool captain. What's the latest with his contract situation and these gargantuan European teams looking to come and take him away?
Yeah, it's a real worrying one probably for Liverpool fans. I don't think anybody saw this one coming, that Jordan Henderson's future might be up for debate this summer. He's such a key figure for Liverpool and for Jurgen Klopp. He's the trusted lieutenant for Klopp on and off the pitch. He's a big figure around the club as well. So the possibility of losing a captain has come as a major shock for everybody connected with the club. I don't think it's massively worrying for the Liverpool power brokers. As you said, it's a bit different from the other midfield players that we've been talking about, the likes of Paul Pogba's and Goretzka's. They're actually entering the final year of their contract. Jordan Henderson still has 2 years to go. But I think all this is coming down to the way that FSG seem to run Liverpool. I think they're not that keen to hand out big contracts to players in their 30s. Jordan Henderson's 31 now. He'll be 33 when his contract ends, and they're looking as a business sense. Do we want to be giving a 33-year-old a new 2 to 3 year deal? Probably not. They took a gamble with Gini Wijnaldum and weren't prepared to give him what he wanted, term-wise and length of contract, and he ended up leaving the club, which was a big disappointment for Jurgen Klopp. I just think this one's slightly different to Wijnaldum. I think Jordan Henderson is such a big part of the furniture at Anfield right now. He's been there for 10 years since his arrival from Sunderland. I'm sure this one will get worked out. I don't think anything's going to happen this summer on him, although if there was any indications that Liverpool were prepared to sell, as you said, Terry, those clubs, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, PSG, would all be willing to take Henderson, because it's not just what he does on the pitch. I think he's a great leader off the pitch as well. He's shown that for Liverpool and England over the last couple of years. He's won the big honours with Liverpool as well. So somebody like a Henderson, who's just a model professional, all the top clubs I think around Europe would take him. But I think this one shall get sorted. I just don't think Liverpool can afford to have another Gino Wijnaldum situation on their hands, and I'm sure contract talks will reopen probably once we get the season underway. And I'm sure on both parties, Jordan Henderson will want to stay, and Liverpool will want to keep Jordan Henderson, but maybe not on a long-term contract, maybe an extra year on his current deal.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting time to release the news, because Liverpool very rarely allow news to come out, but this very much came out in the sense of, it's like they released it to so many outlets at the same time, because it was just boom, 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 boom. So quickly this came out, and maybe it's a case of putting him in the shop window. You know, you probably look at the Genie Wijnaldum situation now, and they probably wish maybe they didn't sell him 2 years ago because they need him for the Premier League, but maybe they wish they sold him last summer. Yeah. Of course, that wasn't helped with the pandemic and those issues as well. But they certainly don't want a repeat with Henderson. They very much like to sell their assets on before they lose valuation. And if Genie had 2 years left on his deal at this point, easily costing you 50+ million pounds in this market. So it's be an intriguing one to see how Liverpool kind of tackle that and how they get around it. In relation to other midfield players, CAMAVINGA is such an interesting one. Still linked with Man United. Big reports this morning, as we spoke about earlier, with Pogba going to PSG. Some French outlets still talking about Man United showing an interest in him. What's the latest with his proposed move to the Premier League? And is it likely that he still stays in France?
Yeah, obviously we all know the interest is there from the Premier League clubs in CAMAVINGA, who's probably one of the best young teenagers in world football. Manchester United seems to be the ones pushing for him. Chelsea also credited with an interest in him, as have Arsenal. They've kept an eye on his progress at Rennes for a long time as well. I know we spoke on the show about this a couple of times before, Terry. CAMAVINGA, from what I'm hearing from his side of the camp, they're more than happy for the young man to stay in France. They think that's the best place for his development right now, whether that's at Rennes or maybe at PSG. We all know PSG would love to sign him as well. But I think he's dropped down the pecking order at Manchester United right now. They're no major rush to try and do this deal. They're trying to sign the likes of Kieran Trippier and Raphael Varane. I think that's United's priorities right now. And if CAMAVINGA's future is still up in the air as we get closer to the end of the transfer window, maybe Man United will make a couple of offers for him to see if they can try and persuade him to move to Old Trafford. But it's not a top priority for them right now. And I think he'll end up staying in France, and possibly a new contract at Rennes with a buyout clause to then maybe allow him to move on next summer. Still only 18. He is a French international as well. I think if it came down between PSG and a Man United, I think PSG would probably win the day in this one because his family would prefer the young man to stay in France.
Yeah, that echoes a lot of what we've been reading, but it's one of those names where I get a DM or two every day going, "Oh, Terry, when you do the next Done Deal show, can you ask about CAMAVINGA?" And I'm like, I don't think anything's changed, but I'll certainly put that question across. We spoke a lot about Arsenal today, but in the lily white half of North London, lots of activity in the last few days. Brian, and I want to try and pronounce his surname right. I've heard it's like I can't do it. It's like Hill, like
Hill.
this.
Brian Hill.
Yeah, do you know what? That's going to be one of them names. Like, he's going to have to do a Bruce Grobbelaar, because I remember watching Bruce Grobbelaar doing an interview where he said his surname was actually pronounced like Grobbelaar, like this. And he went, but there's no way that anyone could say it. So I just said, say Grobbelaar. So people are going to end up calling him Hill, I think, for ease, because it actually hurts me to say it. Like, it's crazy. But they're signing him. So am I gone?
Yeah, we just call him Brian instead.
Brian, yeah, big Brian. That's what we'll call him. But obviously, he's on his way over from Sevilla, which is great. There's a new goalkeeper in now from Atalanta as well. But there's lots of talks about Romero coming in, the centre back. Danny Ings maybe making a move to Tottenham. What's the latest with in their transfer situation?
Yeah, things have really stepped up at Tottenham in the last week or so. Golini looks like it's a done deal from Atalanta on loan, which again is an interesting one for me. I don't see how Golini coming in from Atalanta wants to be third choice keeper. So what that means for Joe Hart and Hugo Lloris, we'll have to wait and see. He's been a regular for Atalanta. Is he going to come to Spurs and be number 2 to Hugo Lloris, or even a number 3 with Joe Hart ahead of him? We'll have to wait and see in that one. But yeah, Christian Romero, also his Atalanta teammate, seems to be on the radar for Spurs right now. Very talented centre back. He's proved himself in the Champions League for Atalanta over the last couple of seasons as well, and has just helped Argentina win the Copa America as well. And it's probably a position that Spurs really do need to strengthen in as well. Is at centre half. Toby Alderweireld is looking to move on and move back to Belgium, so I think that one will probably gather pace over the next couple of weeks as well. That Alderweireld will be on his way out of Tottenham. But yeah, Romero, it's going to be a hard one to do because Atalanta are looking big money for him as well. You're probably looking at 40 million plus, maybe even 50 for him. So I'm not too sure Spurs are able to do that right now, and unless some players leave the club. So I think Tottenham are trying to be busy in the transfer market, but again, I think their hands are sort of tied a bit, that they haven't got lots of money to spend, and we might have to see a few departures for money to be reinvested back into the squad. But yeah, Fabio Paratici, the new sporting director there at Tottenham, is starting to do his work there, and he's got these signings lined up. But I think it's going to be a big squad overhaul at Tottenham this season, and we all know the big one is what's going to happen with Harry Kane. So that's going to be what's going to decide Tottenham's transfer market this summer. Is, do they keep Harry Kane, or will they decide to cash in and sacrifice Harry Kane just to bring some money into the club?
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's such a big part of it as well, because there are those links, as you say. There's Romero. There is the Bologna centre back Tomiyasu. I got it right. I actually got the name right. I'm so proud of myself. So there's lots they're linked with, and what I've read is that this is very much the approach of Paratici, where it's almost like he'll publicly make it aware that we're looking at 3 or 4 players, and it's almost trying to thin down what he's looking at. You often don't quite know which direction they're going to go in, as an example. So I think Tottenham fans need to remain relaxed that they're going to be linked with lots of players at the same time, and the likelihood is that they're all true to a degree. Like none of us are going to know the priority. Tottenham will tell all those individual players they're a priority, but that's definitely not the case. But it's a good approach from them. I did hear a rumor that in terms of the Danny Ings links, that Nuno might want to play with 2 strikers next season.
Yep, there's been a few suggestions that he might have play a few tactical tweaks to that Tottenham side next season, and he thinks Tottenham could play with 2 up front next year. A Danny Ings and a Harry Kane up front would be an exciting prospect for Tottenham fans. We all saw Harry Kane last season seem to drop deeper and deeper, almost becoming a playmaker in the Spurs side, playing balls through for Son and other forwards to maybe get on the end of. So maybe that's the way it could work if Nuno sees Harry Kane playing as a bit deeper and as a bit of a playmaker, almost like a number 10, and then Danny Ings up front if they are able to sign the striker from Southampton again. But again, I don't think that's going to be a real straightforward deal to do either. We all know Danny Ings is looking to leave the club. He's turned down a bumper new contract offer as well. He's got 1 year left, so decision time for Southampton. Do they cash in on him? But yeah, Tottenham, I think we saw Nuno at Wolves. He played several different formations during his time there, normally 3 at the back and then the 5 and then the 2. So maybe there's a real possibility that we could see Harry Kane with a permanent partner in attack next season.
And that'll be interesting to see. I think that could work so well, with, as you say, with the way he drops deep, the way he moves. It could work very, very well indeed if they can convince him to stay, of course, and they don't want to cash in on him. But certainly lots to be kind of looked at and sort of discussed and debated there. There's one other player whose name's linked with everybody at the minute. He's getting about a bit, to be honest with you. Lifting, showing some leg to everybody. That's Saul Niguez. Obviously, I know that you spoke to his representatives about 10 days ago now about this Liverpool link. It still appears to be in the same position where Liverpool have shown interest. They know how much it will cost with Atletico Madrid, but no kind of decision from the player as yet as where he prefers. It was the Barca links, and that looked, the media in Spain made it sound like that was moments away from happening. There's now talk of Manchester United being involved, Chelsea before, as you already mentioned. What is the latest with Saul Niguez, as far as you're aware?
Yeah, this one's all up in the air. Saul Niguez's future right now. Probably last week it seemed more and more likely that he would be going to Barcelona in part exchange in this swap deal with Antoine Griezmann, but that deal has totally collapsed. So it's sort of back to the drawing board for Saul. He had a disappointing season by his high standards last year, struggled to hold down a regular place in Diego Simeone's team. And Atletico have gone and strengthened their midfield this summer with the signing of Rodrigo de Paul. So increases competition for places even more at the club as well. So I think Saul Niguez, he would ideally love to stay at Atletico Madrid, but if he knows he's not in the plans of Simeone or he ain't going to be playing regularly, I think he's definitely going to be looking to move on. Yeah, Liverpool definitely interested. Chelsea also interested in as well. Manchester United have been long-term admirers there, but the ones maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago, they're the ones who were meant to be, if Saul Niguez was to leave Athletic Madrid, that was his destination, to go to Old Trafford. Whether they're going to rekindle that, we'll have to wait and see. But a lot probably will depend on Paul Pogba's future. I'm not sure they will sign Saul Niguez if Paul Pogba is going to remain at Old Trafford this summer and still be a Manchester United player when the transfer window closes. But for Liverpool, I think they would love to sign a Saul Niguez. But I think the transfer fee might be an issue there. You're probably talking 40 to 45 million at least Athletic Madrid will be demanding from, and I don't think Liverpool are that willing to pay that right now. But that could change. They've seen a few fringe players moved out in recent days, with Marco Groya going out to Porto, Harry Wilson seemingly close to leaving as well. And if they can maybe offload a Xherdan Shaqiri or a Divock Origi, that will bring more money into the coffers. And Jurgen Klopp, I'm sure, would love somebody like a Saul Niguez if it's financially possible.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Your updates there on Saul Niguez, plus a plethora of others before it. Pete, as ever, thank you very, very much for coming on and having your say. By the time this is released for sort of general viewers, I'm hoping that we have a done deal, a completed deal, total agreement announcement for Raphael Varane, because that'll be one hell of a signing. And just one more off the tick list that we don't need to go over and over and over and over again each and every week. And it's certainly moving in the right direction. Enjoy the rest of the sunshine, mate. All the viewers, thank you. Hit those like and those share buttons. But until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you all again.